like alternative 2, we don't like it. They being the state, DOTD, because it goes deeper into our property.
I'm going to read between lines here. You've had full-fledged conversations with DOTD about where that road's going to go if 3132 is put in.
We've had quite a few. I mean, we haven't.
They're already giving you 2 options.
Well, this was part of. This went to a solicitation of views in March of 16, where public comment could be made, where they met, and then we could come in and talk to them about that. And these were various options that they drew up. They also drew up options over there with St. Elizabeth Ann Seton on the other side, and all of that.
Having to move theirs as well.
Right.
Which goes to the exact conversation I was having, which was they're not going to rest. They're going to let those intersections stay where they're at. They're going to make them push them back. In this case, push it back to yours. They had no issue with the distance, truck distance between y'all's driveway and the on-ramp of 3132. Yeah, it was sufficiently far.
Well, these photographs that I've shown you, that's what they're proposing, yes.
Okay. All right.
But back to your point, yeah, I am concerned about any change in the density of the overall project, especially, but of the lots closest to the highway, or the change in use, because all of that gets funneled through our property. And it's not something that we're real happy about, but we have agreed to work with the state and Mr. Larkin to the extent that we're not severely damaged, but it's a work in progress.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you. No other questions there. Anyone else here to speak in opposition? Seeing no one else, commission, what's your pleasure? Oh, if Mr. Larkin, if you'd like to, you can have this opportunity for rebuttal to any of the opposition.
Very much. I don't have anything further to add. That's
Oh.
clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioners? Request to speak, Mr. Remedies.
I have a question for staff before I the motion, but if we deferred a decision I'm tempted to do that, but on the other hand, it's unfair because we know how slowly the government works sometimes to the applicant to say, hey, we want to wait until we get an answer, but that answer may be 5 years, it may be 5 months, it may be 5 weeks. So, but is there any sort of a suggestion that the staff may have, in light of what we've seen today? I know you guys made recommendations on approval of some of the lots based on what you had at the time, but I think that I don't think that you had some of the information that the last gentleman that spoke had. I mean, is there anything that you would recommend at this point, maybe, that you haven't seen before, I guess?
The information that was presented is valid information. It's just that it, again, are options and concepts. The only thing that is going to be definitive in the next couple of months is where 3132 is going to go. So that's the only thing that we can hang our hat on that is a definitive thing, and we knowing that both alternatives are exactly the same in this location, we know that that's how that is going to affect that property. Is there a chance that additional roads might be proposed or access points be proposed? Of course. And that will put that'll put that on the applicant himself to have to respond to those issues with the Department of Transportation or with the city of Shreveport or the parish. Now, all of that would have to be taken care of on a case-by-case situation. But what we're doing is outlining this specifically based on the information that is in the public right now, that is being moved forward to for consideration as a solid recommendation for what this right-of-way is going to be. To come back to your question about deferral, we can't defer a plat because there's a 60-day clock that makes it come a reality. The only way it can be deferred would be if Mr. Larkin agreed to defer it and stop the clock. If he decided to do that, then you could wait and see what happens with the MPO in the next couple of months and then come back to this. But that would be his call. If he's decided not to do that, then you have to take action on it, or this is automatically approved within 60 days.
So my second question is, if we we approved as requested,
Right.
this would subdivide these lots, putting the value on them at whatever they would be, costing our government possibly millions of dollars more to build
That is correct.
instead of the raw land in which it's platted now.
That is correct.
So, okay.
That's why we carefully only recommended 4 of the 7 lots be approved with a revision to the plat being submitted by the applicant. And we felt like that was the logical thing to do. It is consistent with the decision you all made 2 months ago with his first plat application, and it remains consistent now in terms of being, if challenged in any fashion or form, would be consistent from a legal perspective.
Okay, thank you, that's all I have,
Right, Mr. Young?
Mr. Chair, I will defer, I will withdraw my any comments, waiting for a motion, which I'd like to make a motion if nobody else has any comments. I'd like to make a motion for approval of Lot 1 and 2 only.
Let me look at that again.
2 to the furthest left. Furthest away.
I have a motion for
I'll second.
the
Not 6?
the approval of lots 1 and 2, and a second for the approval of lots 1 and 2. Questions?
I'd be glad to answer why not 6 if you'd like.
I think I know, but go ahead.
I was just going to say that it is public record, even though it's not considered before the MP net right now, that the DOTD is looking at those access points. So they already have plotted out where they're going to tie that road to get it away from that intersection. So to me, that is public record. That is public knowledge that I have taken into consideration when I look at lot number 6 and say, no, I shouldn't make that decision at this point. He gets these 2 subdivided, they decide they're going to do something totally different. He can always reapply for lot 6 and 7 and 5 and all those others. But right now, we give him therefore to go forth and build on those 2. Those are the furthest away from the road, takes out the potential crossroad that has to tie back over into the Glenn's property out of the mix. So, and 7 already has an encroachment on it. I'm already worried that that may significantly devalue that property, and therefore he would look for additional compensation. Once again, we know in a couple months where the route is. He wants to resubmit at that time, where we can take into consideration at the time. That's why I'm saying just 1 and 2. Those are 2 are out of the mix as far as I'm concerned, and he can develop those.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Mr. Remedies?
This is for staff. In fairness to the applicant, if we just approve 1 and 2, is that considered a denial on the other ones, starting the clock for 1 year before he can request a approval? I mean, I'm just looking to be fair to the, can we stipulate that if there is what I'm asking.
Well, I mean, once you deny, you do have the 1-year clock on that. And so you're approving just 2 of the 7 lots, if that's what is done here. I don't know, and I'm trying to think strategically what would be the best thing to do. I'm not anticipating that the applicant will come back with another application in the near future. But I think that it would put him in a bind in the sense that he would have to wait that year before he can come back for the platting of those remaining lots. Now, let's just think about this for a second. I'm talking while I'm thinking, and this is always dangerous. The reality is that if you approve 2 lots, you've approved those 2 lots. The other lots are technically not approved, and you've denied those. So really, I have to ask the question technically whether or not he can come back on those other remaining 5 lots to do something with those.
Well, Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
In my personal opinion, this is not a denial, it's a partial approval.
And you could see it that way. That's the way you want to word this, is that we're not.
So you leave the door open for the rest, in my opinion.
Yes, you could. I think probably we could legitimately say that, that you could leave it the door open for him to come back with those other 5
I
lots.
mean, it would be different, we said no to the whole thing.
Right.
And then that whole thing does.
Right.
And once again, this decision is always appealable.
That is true, and we know the other case has been appealed and is going before the city council on January the 10th. Okay, so I'm going to ask a question. This is an open-ended question because I'm trying to make certain we're doing this the right way. If we approve 2 lots, are you technically denying the other 5? Because if you don't technically deny the other 5 lots, then you will allow it to become a reality within 60 days because you didn't make a decision on those. What I'm saying is it's a catch-22 here.
But it's up for approval of all those lots. So if
Right.
we only approve 2, the others are denied.
That's really technically what happens here. I mean, you're not saying it, but that's exactly what you're doing. You're denying the other 5 lots. You're only approving 2. So the rules would have to fall into place for the year time frame that you're talking about.
But in all fairness, though, there is an appeal process
There
that he
is.
has and that he would have.
That's
After the
correct.
appeal process was completed, he would still only have about 8 or 9 months.
That's correct.
Okay.
So there's a pathway that he has to appeal this, which means that if the city council were to say, no, we don't agree with the MPC, then that reverses everything around.
Okay.
Question, I mean, let me just say for clarity and make sure I have this together in my own thinking, that the motion needs to state with specificity
Yes.
that there is both the approval of something and the denial of something
I
else.
think that would be correct, to make it very clear. Very clear.
Mr. Andrews?
Well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I guess my concern is Mr. Young's opinion relative to what he supposes might happen as far as access roads. We don't have anything, does the staff have anything that
No,
deals with access roads or DOTD or anything like that? So you're making a supposition at this point based on hearsay, and I guess that's the only problem I've got. I can rest assured that you guys have chewed on this thing quite amount of time, especially with Mr. Larkin and trying to get to this point and feel confident with what you're talking about as a recommendation.
Right.
And I guess that's why I'm saying to this point, I'm in favor of going along with the staff's recommendation as opposing to cutting and pasting pieces of what you've done, if for no reason, for a legal standpoint
Right.
at this point in the game. That's my concern. Thank you,
May I
Mr.
comment to that?
I mean, you can ask the chair.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Young?
thank you, sir. I agree with what you're saying, Mr. Andrews, but I think the cross-servitude roads are part of legal documents now. That is something the DOTD is taking into strong consideration is because they have to take in consideration what they're going to do with that service road. And this is why they've already been in conference, I think, with the Glen about imposing upon their property and with St. Catherine's Church, I think that's the name
No,
of it?
that's not it.
Whatever, the Catholic Church. St. Elizabeth Seton, is because they're already having to look at that as the totality of the project. So I think there are some public documents on record about them already having to explore those avenues and those potential tie-ins. Otherwise, they would have been in contact with the Glen saying, we're fixing to intrude upon your property whether you like it or not, because the current road, if it stays, if they do 3132A or B, that current access road onto that property of the belongs to Mr. Larkin, it cannot stay there. So they're already, those conversations are already had. I think it's already a matter of public record those conversations are had. There's, I think, documents already been produced stating so, that they're having to look at those alternatives because this is a consequence of the inevitability, if they do go forward with A or B, this is the consequence of it. That road is going to have to be relocated, and I think that's why they've got, I won't say the cart before the horse. It may not be submitted as part of 3132, but the inevitability is those roads are going to have to be moved. And so that's why those conversations, I think we're having, those documents have been produced about potential alternatives, where to tie that Esplanade property road back over to Glen property. So to me, the
Well, my
state's already
question- my concern
state's
is,
already
do we-
opened that caveat.
Do we have that in front of us? Is that before us today?
Well, I just saw it. He put it up on the screen
Well,
with
that's his
Mr.
opinion.
Glenn.
That's
Well, that
his
was Mr. Glenn, the attorney for the Glen, showed that, and that was a document, I believe it was produced by DOTD. And I think that's a fair statement, that it was produced by DOTD. Now, why we don't have that before us now, I don't know. But given that information, I know that there's a potential conflict with that lot, that most northern or western, or however you want it, lot number 6. I know there's a potential conflict now. So if there's a potential conflict, all this gets answered in 60 days. To me, if you permit this piece of property, you just drove the value of that property through the roof as a lot only to potentially have DOTD come back in 6 months or 8 months or a year from now and saying, okay, now we got to acquire this at a much higher value rate. And to me, to defer it on lot number 6 is the wise and prudent decision on behalf of the citizens. That's my opinion. So that's why I think lot 1 and 2, clearly out of the picture, clearly no conflicts on those on potential route A and B. So to me, that is the most prudent thing to do on behalf of the taxpayers. So that's my 2 cents worth, especially when we're 60 days out of a window to know. Hopefully, 60 days out.
And I will say, and I'm not trying to split hairs here, is Alan's position is the more conservative position of this, which I respect that. I mean, I understand where he's going with that. The staff's recommendation is not quite as conservative. It's a little bit more liberal. It's giving him more options than just eliminating just 3 of the lots. But you've got to remember that all of this is a changing dynamic. The information that was shown to you by the attorney may be valid, but it's probably fluid, just like everything else. What's going to happen, and I'm just drawing you a picture, is that when this corridor is established within the next couple of months, the dynamics of establishing that corridor will have a chain reaction effect on what the state's going to do. So all of the dynamics that we've looked at heretofore may be out the window, depending on how the state approaches this, based on what they now see as a recommended pathway. So that's the only thing I want you to understand, is that all this information is fluid. And that's what makes this so difficult. But it's enough information based on what MPO has given us that we know that's where the corridor is going to go regardless. And Alan's correct. The access roads, the service road access points and everything, all of that is going to have to be designed at some point in time. But that too is somewhat fluid. And so you're kind of having to make a decision in something of a void here somewhat. So we offered you a more moderate approach of what we are recommending for approval. His approach is a little bit more conservative. Neither one is right and neither one is wrong. It depends on which way this body feels most compelled to go, because I just want to be consistent in what we're doing. Consistent with what you did 2 months ago, consistent with what you're doing now, and that we base that on a legal foundation that's defensible. That's it. I don't know that I answered your question, but that I may have muddied the water. But the idea is that there's not more than one. There's more than perhaps just one right answer here.
All right, Mr. Remedies?
Since I seconded, I wanted to ask Mr. Young to restate his motion and be very specific.
My motion is to approve lots 1 and 2, to deny lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7.
I second.
So we have a motion on the floor to approve lots 1 and 2 and to deny lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Motion by Mr. Young and second by Mr. Remedies.
Second, we have questions.
Dr. Pennywell.
Right. I was just thinking if I could offer a motion that we approve the staff's recommendation. They've already given us a recommendation. But why can't we approve what the staff has given us, and then all of what we're talking about now, if that comes to play, then we deal with that then?
Motion's already on the table.
With
It's currently a motion on the floor, but unless you're offering a substitute motion.
Right.
So Dr. Pennywell is offering a substitute motion for the staff's recommendation. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion by Dr. Pennywell, second by Mr. Andrews to approve the staff's recommendation, which would specifically be the approval of lots 1, 2, 6, and 7, and thus the denial of lots 3, 4, and 5.
Okay, and my question is, I'm sorry.
I got a question. Ms.
Just procedurally,
Google.
don't we have to vote on whether to allow the substitute motion, not vote on the
Yes.
substitute motion? Or am I wrong about that?
Yes, that's true.
So this vote will be whether to allow that vote to precede first motion.
Not when we picked officers last year, we didn't do that. I made a
Voting
motion
now on the
for an
substitute
officer,
motion.
and it was a substitute motion made and voted on.
And
There's just a
I
procedural
thought
question.
that, let me say, I I thought that what should happen is the vote on the substitute motion should come first, and that's a yea and nay, not to vote on it, but on the merit of the motion.
That's what we
Yea
did
and
on,
nay, and then if it dies, then we go back to the original motion. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is
So, we have a substitute motion on the floor to approve the staff's recommendation. There are no other questions. We will vote on the substitute motion. All in favor of the substitute motion? Yes.
Just to be clear, and if this does not prevail, we go back to
To
the original motion.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
thank you.
All in favor vote yes to approving the staff's recommendation. All opposed, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
That fails 3-6. Original motion is now again on the floor. Any other questions with reference to approving lots 1 and 2 and denying lots 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7? Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor vote yes, all opposed no.
Well, there we go.
It passes 5-4. All right? Okay. But that's the last case on our public hearing agenda. That's the end of our public hearing. We now move to item 22, other business, master plan implementation report. Mr. Sweeney?
Yes, sir. I would like to let everyone know that yesterday, thank you, sir, we had a meeting with the Parish Commission Long Range Committee. And Mario Chavez is the chair of that, and we met with them yesterday to discuss two issues. One was the UDC and the issue about the site plan approval process. There was a parish commissioner who had recommended an amendment to reverse what we had done about doing administrative review and approval of site plans. This kind of hung around for about 2 or 3 meetings. It finally was referred to this committee. So I went in with the assistance of Adam and Stephen here and did a presentation where I explained to them why it was valuable to have the process that we've worked so feverishly and hard to get approved and implemented by both the city and the parish back in August. I gave them an example of the site plans that had been approved since then and that no site plan had been denied in that time period. I explained to them the process of what it meant to go through site plan review and approval. The committee listened very intensely. They asked a lot of questions, and they unanimously supported the idea that the idea of amending and going back to the old way was not a valid path. So they will be telling the full board that that approach will not be pursued. We then had an opportunity to go over the issues about the UDC. We have had a lot of good dialogue with a lot of groups, the Home Builders Association, several other groups, where we've come to some good points of compromise and agreement. And I gave them an opportunity to understand all the issues we have worked through for the last 20 months. They were they asked a lot of very good questions again, and they were extremely pleased and voted unanimously to send the UDC to the full body for full vote and consideration. So I want to tell you today, that was an extremely positive and valuable meeting that laid the foundation to what I believe will be a very strong support from the Parish Commission for the Unified Development Code. I was very fortunate because we had people, I had invited Andy Craig to come to that meeting so he could talk about the site plan process, and he got up and gave his testimonial. We had tremendous support by a gentleman that I had not invited but was there because someone else had invited. It was Tom Arsenault, who came in and point blank told them, guys, we need to get this done. He says, you can work on it another 6 more months and there'll still be something wrong with it. And it just needs to get done. Because he says, I've worked on this since we talked about this long back when he was on city council, and all the issues and things that have been involved in it. And the interesting thing is that there were other parish commissioners in the room as well that were not on the committee. and they witnessed what was going on and understood what was going on. And at the end of the day, we got exactly what we had asked for, which is an extremely strong statement of endorsement. And I wanted you to know that all this effort and energy on the part of just working day and night trying to make this thing come together is starting to become reality. So what's going to happen is I will be making a presentation to the City Council on January the 10th. That's next Tuesday. I've invited Arista from Camiros to be with us at that meeting. I will be making a presentation where I will talk about the Unified Development Code, including all of the 35 amendments that y'all approved, plus some changes and tweaks that have been made since our negotiations with various groups that we're going to add to that. That makes it even better. And so we'll make the presentation on the 10th. I'm anticipating the City Council may take a vote on the 10th, or at least take a vote by the 24th of January. With the parish, we will make our presentation and introduction on the 17th of January. But since they didn't introduce it like the City Council did back in November, they just delayed theirs. That means I probably won't get a final vote from the Parish Commission until their first meeting in February. So what was said to me in that meeting yesterday, specifically Commissioner John Atkins says, I feel like it's important for the city to take the first move on this, because more of it applies to them than it does even to the parish. And they said, we want to see what the City Council does, and then in turn that will lay the foundation for what we need to do in terms of the Parish Commission. So keep your fingers crossed. I believe that we are almost over the, almost to the touchdown here, because I think by February we will have, both bodies will have approved the Unified Development Code. I sense the momentum, I sense the cooperation, and I sense the attitude of people that I never thought would support it are now on board. And that's been a team effort, I'm telling you, that I believe will pay off. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention, that that event happened yesterday, and stay tuned. If you want to come to the council meeting on the 10th, you're welcome to do that, as well as the Parish Commission meeting on the 17th. And so my plans are to have Arista with Camiros come in for both meetings. She's going to come for the meeting on the 10th, but probably will wait and have her come in for the actual vote meeting in February for the commission, for the Parish Commission.
Can you state those dates again?
The 10th of January, the City Council, and the 17th of January is the Parish Commission. And then I'm anticipating a vote from the Parish Commission probably in the first meeting in February. The only other thing, I've already mentioned this to y'all earlier, you know that the Brookshire's case will be appealed, has been appealed, and will go to the January 24th meeting of the City Council. Great progress appears to be being made on that case, and we hope that by the time we get to the meeting on the 24th that it actually will be a project that will be receive a lot of support from both the neighborhood associations as well as the developers and the development community. And then on the 10th of January is when Mr. Larkin's first plat that you denied will be before the City Council for consideration. And then that's really all of my reports at this stage of the game. And then next is really the chair's report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sweeney. Just wanted to, I guess it is my responsibility to impanel, if you will, our board committees. And so there's a sheet inside of your binder that speaks specifically to those things. I spoken with Mr. Sweeney to just get a sense of historically what we have done, and I would say to you that what I asked him to do was to give me a little overview of what committees have done in times past. And so my goal is to ask those committees to operate and with some specific direction. I've asked what I've done is not just appointed a committee, but a person responsible for that committee, a chairperson for that committee. And so obviously our executive committee and our budget committee is a standard committee with folks who are on there who are officers. And so that's a standard committee. But as it relates to our operational staff and personnel committee, I've asked Dr. Pennywell to chair, Mr. Remedies, Mr. Colvin, Mr. Andrews to serve on that. One of the things specifically I'd like to say to that particular committee is that we need to look at updates and recommendations to changes in our personnel policies. We have, I think I have in a short period of time of being here, seen and heard a lot of things that probably should be addressed or redressed, if you will, in policy. And so I want to certainly ask that group to work on that as one of the goals of that particular committee. And then the Master Plan and UDC committee asked Ms. DeMarteau to chair it. Mr. Colvin, Mr. Remedies, and myself serve on that committee. This committee, just piggybacking on what Mr. Sweeney just said, assuming whenever the council and commission pass the UDC, one thing we know for sure is that UDC is brand new. And the very first reaction to brand new things typically is resistance. And a lot of times it's because of a lack of education or orientation of it. I'd spoken with Mr. Sweeney about this notion of kind of a road show once again, because what we talked about before was master plan meetings, but now that when we do, let me say, have a document that becomes the working ordinance for the city and parish, the people need an education with reference to what it is. The notion or the idea of it was presented before in a lot of meetings, but the fact is there is something concrete that will come after the commission and council have voted on those things. And I think it would be prudent for us to be sure that we take the lead in educating people who have an interest in this. And so one of the things I want to ask this committee to do, rather than perhaps a traveling a road show, is to consider perhaps and it will impact what we do monthly as relates to our meetings, but to at least consider hosting a 2:00 meeting before our monthly meeting right in this room that will present pieces of the UDC and constituencies who have particular interest in those particular portions of the UDC would be present on that particular Wednesday. And rather than trying to feed everybody the whole thing, that we break it down in sections and the staff will make the presentations. That committee might be present at this, and the community can be informed via presentation of portion by portion of UDC until perhaps over the course of the year we will have shown everything or tried our best to explain everything to everybody that we could. I think we ought to at least be guilty of trying to disseminate the information. It's a living document, so there's always going to be some questions and concerns, but I just don't want the record to reflect that we didn't try to educate the community after there was a document put in place.
Sounds great.
I think it's a great idea. I want to give you a little bit of a heads up on the past, and Mr. Andrews can back me up on this. The master plan subcommittee is an MPC subcommittee, but we do have city council people and parish commissioners on this board. They typically like to elect themselves the chair of the board. We've seen history of that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just warning you that you can appoint me chair all you want, but once we get in there, things might change.
Well, I was made aware of that, and I just think that, personally, for the record, that we ought to do what we need to do. At the end of the day, I appreciate them, but they serve us. And we serve at the pleasure of those appointments as well. So for me, I see it as a lateral scenario where we are collegial, and I don't, hopefully they're not condescending, God forbid. But I think we work on a lateral, if you will, level. So that doesn't bother me. I think that if it's our committee, all they told me is they had the responsibility of impaneling the committee. I do know that's been an ongoing argument about reducing the number of people from this body who would be on that body as well. So for now, we'll do it this way, and we'll cross that bridge when we get there. That's my position.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure you were informed.
Yeah. Ms. Smith?
I like what you just said, and know you all been doing a magnificent job, but I like the idea that the public, the community people, they really need to know exactly what is going on. Yes, you're doing a good job. You have all of your representatives, city council, and parish, whoever's on the committee, but the citizens need to know. I know we're met everywhere with this, and you know it too. But I like the idea of what you're talking about.
Thank you.
Mr.
Young?
Chairman, I looked at your MPC board committee, and a suggestion is, I think there should be a vice chair, because there's a case where the chair will be out, you still have enough for a quorum, but you still need somebody to moderate the meeting. So to me, the natural one for Nancy is the vice chair of the MPC, so she should be the vice chair of the budget committee, to your discretion on the rest, but it's to your discretion even on that one, but you're the chair. But somebody to moderate the meeting, because you still have enough for a quorum.
Well, I will say then, one of the things, what I would do then is allow the committee to decide that.
Okay.
So if we need a vice chairman, obviously, in the first meeting of that committee, the only real thing you need to vote on initially is who will be the other person who will share that responsibility. So I'll leave that up to the committee to do that. All right. And then finally, the Rules and Procedures Committee, and I've asked Mrs. Nancy Cooper, the chair, Ms. Bessie Smith, Mr. Allen Young, and Leah DeMarteau. One of the things that I think we need to do there is taking a look at the current status of our bylaws. And we have bylaws, but the question is whether or not they represent where we are in 2016, and given the current status of a lot of things, including what will be the UDC and some other things. And so I'd like for us to hand off to whoever may follow us a more up-to-date set of bylaws than we may currently possess. I'm looking at the bylaws from the initial binder that I received, and it appears to me that I won't call them steeped in antiquity, but they deserve some. They deserve another perusal.
Less than applicable.
So if you would, I'd just like to ask those committees to just consider those things. Obviously, there are other things that will come before us, and one of the things I'd like to do and I don't know if I consider it privilege as much as I think it's responsibility, is that there are a lot of things that happen that can be remanded to these committees rather than being vetted out in this setting. And I think the smaller group will have time to get together and think about whether or not we should consider certain things that come up on our agenda and our day-to-day work. So I hopefully that everyone will accept these particular appointments, and then we'll forge forward in that spirit. Any other questions, comments about this committee, Mr.
No, not committee.
Mr. Young?
I have something else before we depart.
If there's nothing else on the committee appointments, Mr. Young?
Just real quick, and I know it because it's 5 to 5 now. I would be remiss if I did not say that Mr. Jambor is gone. He has resigned and gone on. He brought great knowledge and a lot of depth to the MPC over the years. He's done a lot of great things, including the Cross Bayou project and those things. And I think it would be remiss if we did not at least thank him for his service when he was here and all the great things he did on behalf of the City of Shreveport and Caddo Parish and for the Metropolitan Planning Commission. And, we wish him all the best in his endeavors in Texas. So.
Here.
Thank you. For the record, we want to certainly acknowledge his service. I worked with him about 14 years ago, I guess, so he's been here longer than 14 years. But he's always been quiet-spoken, yet well-informed. So thank you. Anybody else, any other, Mr. Andrews, you had something?
Yeah, most of it going.
Okay. Anything
Well,
previous?
Before that, I just wanted to, if on this personnel committee, I would like to ask the staff if they would provide a printed, and you can call me and I'll pick it up, a printed copy of the policies and procedures, everything that you, all the guidelines that you use to manage the staff here, so we can take a look at that. Because we're provided with the bylaws and things when we first are appointed, but we're not ever provided with those. So.
Okay, yeah, I can give you an updated version. We have, Diane and I have parceled together a little side thing where it has various things that are on there, like there's the policy related to the access to the attorney, like that one. That's not in your bylaws, that's a side thing that we've added on, but we can give you the updated list of that.
Okay. Yeah, but if you'll just have someone call or email me, we'll stop by and pick it up.
Sure, no problem.
Yeah, thank you. Does anyone else on that committee want a copy of that? Just-
Yeah, the whole committee.
Oh, the whole committee, okay.
Whole committee, all of us need a copy.
No, sometimes, and the reason why I didn't ask that, because sometimes I've asked for things and somebody said, no, I don't need all that paperwork, so I just wanted
We
to.
all need a copy.
Okay, all right, there you go.
Yeah, if we gonna kiss it, we need to know
Yeah.
what it look like.
There you go.
And I want to ask, I want to charge each of the chairmen to have a meeting as soon as possible. We do know a little bit about what the committees, at least initially, what I've asked us to try to tackle. It may be a little bit more difficult for the UDC committee right now, but want the rest of us to just begin to kind of get this work done as soon as we can, all right? Nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Got a motion and a second?
Second.
All in favor, vote stand.
All in favor, run to the door.
No, I'm standing.
Oh, we now.
You had to vote on that, Darren.
I don't see it.
That's what I was saying.